All right. Hair, all the things.
We're good to go?
We're good.
Hello.
Hello.
Episode 6. This is Allie.
This is Farah.
And we're with the Finessology podcast. We're glad you guys are back to listen again.
Yep. We will not be eating nuts this episode or chewing gum.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that people could hear.
I know. It's fine.
They were yummy. I was hungry.
I know.
It's fine.
Yeah. So it's just us today. We don't have a guest for once. And we're kind of excited to be able to girl talk for a minute.
Yeah, we have some really good things to talk about for these next coming episodes since we're all in quarantine with the coronavirus.
If you guys didn't know, we actually record ahead of time. So what is this week? Is this the first week that we've been quarantined?
Yes.
I think it is. Yeah. So we shouldn't be together right now. But it's fine.
Yeah, we're good.
We're far enough apart, and there's only 3 of us in this room, so we're good.
I Lysol. I disinfect. We're good. We're good.
I took a shower before I came over.
I took a shower before you came over.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we have kind of an awesome topic that they're kind of intertwined. We have 2 topics here. Do you want to tell them?
Yeah. So since we live in Utah, and Utah is one of those states that everybody asks about, and whenever we go out of town and we say we're from Utah, and they're like, "Are you Mormon? Mm-hmm. Do you have horns and a tail?" So
yeah.
Craziness. So today we are going to talk about the Utah culture, and then we're going to move into a little bit of let's talk about sex, baby. So we thought that because
everybody, when we ask what we should talk about, they say sex.
Yeah.
Or they say relationships.
We're going to throw sex into every episode.
Yeah, sex and all the things. No, yeah. It's appropriate, you guys. It's okay.
But we thought that we could go into a little bit of the Utah culture and then sex along with it, what kind of comes along. We'll talk about the fun things of sex probably in a future episode, but we just wanted to bring that up in this episode. So
Yep.
So let's talk about a little bit of Utah history. I'm sure a lot of the Mormons know this a lot better than me, but obviously, we are connected to the Mormon religion here in Utah. It influences most of the state's politics and society. So I want to go into kind of where Utah came from. So Utah, of course, it goes back a lot further than what I'm going to talk about with the Native Americans and people who lived here before Brigham Young did. But he came here from Illinois with a small group of Mormon followers in 1847. They stopped here in Utah. They're like, we're going to stop. This seems like a really great place to stay. And they laid out the foundation of Temple Square in Salt Lake. So I don't know if a lot of you have been to Temple Square. I'm sure people who have lived in Utah have been to Temple Square. It's really pretty. Mm-hmm. And then in 1858, the federal government replaced Young as governor, prompting a minor fight known as the Utah War. And I've never heard of the Utah War before.
No, I actually have not.
I've never heard of that. So I thought that was really interesting. In 1890, polygamy was banned and was declared officially illegal.
Just kidding.
I know. And then on January 4th, which is my birthday.
It's my daddy's birthday too.
Yeah, and her daddy's birthday, special day. 1896, Utah became the 45th state in the Union.
Yeah,
yay, Utah. So anyways, a little background about Utah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's predominantly LDS, the culture is.
1/3 of the Mormon culture, Mormon population, is in Utah.
Right, yeah. So I think that's what everybody probably thinks of when they hear Utah, or hear that we're from Utah or talk about Utah. When I had moved from Utah to California, that was probably the biggest question I was asked. Are you LDS?
Yeah.
And when I was going to move to Utah, everybody asked, oh, where all the LDS people are. So are you going to be LDS? I think that's just kind of trademark maybe for Utah. So predominantly LDS. Let's see, what else? Utah culture. We have the jazz. We have...
Oh, yeah, the best of Utah. Best skiing in the country.
Oh, yeah.
Best skiing. I've at least done it. I've skied once. I've snowboarded a handful of times, but I don't do it anymore. So I can only say that I do.
Yeah.
It hurts me.
Yeah. I just haven't made time for it. I used to snowboard all the time.
It's expensive.
And I just don't have time anymore. I wish I did.
I know.
My stepson, Karsten, goes up all the time because his grandma Gail usually works there, so he gets hooked up and gets to go all the time, and he's really good.
That's the only reason to really go if you have hookups.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's
expensive.
Yeah, way expensive.
And time consuming, but it's awesome. There's we've got our temples. We've got an Ogden temple. We've got a Brigham temple. We've got
pretty much every city.
Salt Lake. Yeah, like all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the Utah Arts Council. Well, I guess those of you who are listening that don't really know about the temples, they're only for Mormons that actually go to church and attend.
Yeah, I think we can only see them
before they're dedicated.
Yeah, before they're dedicated. Because I went to the Ogden one when I was pregnant.
Oh.
Yeah, it was fun.
I went to the Ogden when they redid it. Oh, yeah. So Hensley was a baby. Okay. So,
I had my I was like 9 months pregnant.
Yeah, Hensley was just a baby then.
Yeah.
The Osmonds in the 60s and 70s. That was big from Utah.
What?
Yeah, the Osmonds are from Utah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we've got Sundance, Park City. We had the Olympics in 2002.
Yeah, Real Salt Lake.
That was cool. Yeah. So, I mean.
And beautiful forests and attractions. Arches, Bryce Canyon, Capitol Reef, Zion, Timpanogos Caves. Utah's amazing. Utah has so many things.
Yes.
I love going down south to like the Henry Mountains where there's desert and red rock. And that's where like we do a lot of our shed hunting. Yeah. Colby's probably going to kill me for saying that.
I know. But I don't realize like some things I'm like, should I say this? Should I not? I don't know.
Anyways, it's beautiful. There's lots of Indian stuff down there too, pottery, and it's just, Utah's beautiful.
Utah's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like our backgrounds and like kind of our like what has happened in our lives. Start us off
because yours is really interesting. I didn't know that you lived in Oklahoma, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, start us off.
Okay, so I was born in Jackson Hole. I'm like looking. I'm like, where? I need to read this. Just kidding. I know it. So I was born in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We moved to Casper, Wyoming, and that's where I spent like most of my elementary years. We lived in, let's see, our property was, I want to say it was a half an acre. I could be wrong. My parents know, but.
In Casper?
Yeah.
Okay.
In Casper. And we lived kind of out in the country. We had neighbors, but everybody had huge yards. Some people had horses. We all knew each other. And, so it was great. But then my parents got transferred. So at one point we got transferred to Oklahoma.
Why did you get transferred?
So my mom was like a higher up at Flying J, actually. So she was, I want to say, I think it was just the restaurant part at the time. But so she was a higher up. She got transferred to Oklahoma. We moved there. That was in 1994, maybe. The Oklahoma bombing happened when I was there. I know we had a tornado happen when we lived there. It was crazy. We lived there for about a year, and then we moved back to Casper. We had our house like rented out. Then we moved back to Casper, and then we moved to Utah when I was 10. So when I found out we were moving to Utah, I was super excited because I had heard that it was like just completely different than Wyoming. There was like cliques, and my sister had actually lived there before with her mom because my sister's a half. She's a half sister.
She's a half person.
Yeah, she's my half sister. So she would go and stay with her mom half the time, and they lived in Utah for a while. My dad's from Utah. Like a little backstory, he went to BYU. He was super LDS.
So did you say he's from Utah?
My dad is from South Dakota.
Oh, okay.
But he lived in Utah. He taught here in Utah. He was a teacher. He taught at Ogden High. And and so he lived here for a while, and then he was teaching in Wyoming, and that's when he met my mom.
Wait, when did he teach at Ogden High? Do you know?
A long time ago. My parents are quite a bit older because I'm the youngest out of how many kids are there? There's 3, 4, 5. So I'm the youngest out of 5, and they're all at least 10 years older than me. So my dad probably taught in the early 80s maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then he taught in Wyoming, and that's where he met my mom. My mom just happened to be there by chance because she was living in California at the time. But anyway, so we moved to Utah in 1997 or 1998. And my experiences when I was a kid, I loved Utah compared to Wyoming. I loved Wyoming just because that was my roots. But Utah was super exciting because there was so much more. There was like way more social activities. The church would come visit us all the time. We'd have missionaries come over. We'd have people bringing us treats.
So what was your religious affiliation when you were in Wyoming?
I don't think I really had one. Like my mom's always been very Christian, so we would pray every night. Like we would talk about the Bible and things like that. But we didn't ever like go to church when I was a kid. And then, but my dad, I knew that I didn't know about the term LDS, but I knew my dad was he had been Mormon in the past.
Okay.
He was sealed in the temple to his ex-wife and my sister.
Really?
Yeah. And he went to BYU. He went to law school and just ended up being a teacher. He didn't want to do the whole law thing, but yeah, so I knew he was like, he had been Mormon at one point, but that was never really a part of my life until we moved to Utah. So it was a culture shock in that regard, because I remember I would get excited because I would go with my friends to church and it was fun. Like all my friends were there and we would go up and like bear our testimony. I didn't know what that meant, but I would get up because I was like, the same way I am now, and I wanted everybody to hear what I had to say. So I would get up in front of everybody and bear my testimony. And it was exciting for me when I was a kid because it was a lot of just activity, and we didn't have that in Wyoming, so it was fun. Yeah, so there's that leading up to, I guess I was in like 5th and 6th grade. Things changed a little bit when I got in junior high, but
as far as.
So do you want me to go into all of it, or do you want to take
No, go into detail. Give people detail.
Okay, so this is just my experience. I think everybody's different. In junior high, so I've always been one that's like, I'm friends with everybody. Like, I like everybody. I'm nice to everybody. I never would try to make anybody feel bad or inferior or anything like that. So I had a lot of neighbor friends in the neighborhood that were like skater kids. And some of them, like one in particular that I love to this day, was like already into drugs and things like that when we were in like 6th grade.
Aww.
But my family like loved him, and like we kind of took him in a little bit. And when I started associating with those people, I feel like a lot of my like people that I was going to church with kind of shunned me a little bit. And so that was weird for me. So I'm like, I'm just trying to be friends with, everybody. So I think 7th and 8th grade was really hard because I was kind of pulled in several different directions. So in 9th grade, I decided the route that I wanted to take. So I started going to church on my own because a lot of my friends would go to church. And I thought, that's church. When I say go to church, it's the LDS church. So I would go to church with them. And I started going to seminary in 9th grade. So if you guys don't know what seminary is, it's like an hour. I don't think it counts as a credit, if I remember right. Does it?
I have no idea. I never went.
Yeah. So I don't think it counts as a credit, but I would take seminary in 9th grade. I took it all through high school, but I kind of started trying to be more in that group because there was a lot of cliques. So I wanted to be I wanted to go with what I thought was probably the best route. And so I started going to church and then doing all those things, but I didn't, how do I say this without sounding, it didn't fit with who I was, I guess I should say. And also, side note, I used to dress kind of like I dress now. Like I would dress in form-fitting clothes and my midriff would show. I would just tank tops, whatever, short shorts, and I would catch a lot of slack for that. Like I'd be in trouble all the time at school, and that would always confuse me because growing up, my mom's always been that way. She's always wore littler clothes, and she's always had this cute little body, but my mom is the most morally strong person I've ever met in my life. She's just super, super loyal to my dad. She's not at all what's the word? Provocative.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not
she's just very confident.
Yeah, she's very confident. And so to me, I'm like, why am I always getting slack for the way that I'm dressed? I'm only just trying to dress cute or whatever. So I always got in trouble for that kind of thing, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then so anyway, I kind of went that route, but I don't feel like I ever fit in there. I was just trying to kind of fit in. And then I got a boyfriend in 10th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. And I kind of strayed away from the church and got more into the partying scene, I guess. But anyway, it was hard for me being somebody that was an outsider to come in, and the culture was just very about church and about we don't do this, and if you do this, you're not a part of us kind of thing. And so
you have to repent.
Yeah, and that was really hard for me because it was just different from what I grew up with. And I remember specifically weird things. I went to get my ears pierced the second time, and I did. I went and got my ears pierced, and I went to seminary, and the seminary teacher we had in 9th grade was you cannot wear your earrings here, your second earring. And I remember being like, wait, what? Like, what does that have to do with anything? So just little things like I didn't really like realize about background. And I don't know how much that's emphasized now because I haven't been to church in a long time. But I know at the time, like, you weren't supposed to have more than one hole in your ear, but I didn't know that. And I just didn't understand what that had to do with anything. And I remember he called me out in front of everybody in seminary. So I was like, just kind of felt dumb because I'm like, what is that? You know, I don't know what to do with that. So yeah, there was a lot of, it was hard. It was hard not being, you know, growing up LDS. And my parents, they were always supportive of me going to church, but my parents had similar experiences. Like my mom, the first time she went to an LDS church, she's all, where's the coffee? Where can we get the coffee? And then like this little girl was there and my mom was all, that's such a cute little shit. Like, so she always tells that story that my dad was like, oh my God, like I can't take this woman anywhere. So I think my dad kind of strayed away from the church a little bit. My mom never really was about the LDS church, but they would support the fact that I would go. But, you know, we kind of just strayed away from it and it wasn't really for me, but everybody was kind of, some people were okay with it, but most people that I was friends with were not okay with me once I strayed away from that. So that was hard. It was just different.
So would you say that if you didn't move to Utah, would you have tried an LDS church in a different state?
100% no. And not because of any other, not anything against LDS church. It just wasn't something that was presented to me at all. And I think the reason why I went that route was because that's what everybody else was doing, you know, the peer pressure. And I loved my friends in like 5th and 6th grade that were LDS, like loved them. And then once I started like hanging out with other people and they weren't my friends anymore, I'm like, well, I better get into the church, you know? So it wasn't for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I don't think I would have, no. Mm-hmm. I actually think I went to once I was done with high school and moved to California, I went to a few Christian churches and just kind of tried out a couple things to see where I actually, you know, felt something. So yeah, no, definitely wouldn't have.
Would you say you're a pretty religious person?
No, I'm not religious. I definitely have faith. Like I know where my heart's at and I know how I feel about things, but I have a hard time with organized religion being an adult now. So yeah, but I don't have any problems. Like I don't have any issues with anybody that does, you know, have that as their faith. Like I think everybody should believe in something. Yeah. And if going to church like fulfills your life, then go to church. I love it. I would never think anything bad about that. It's just not particularly for me. Yeah. So
makes sense.
Yeah. Let's hear your story.
Oh.
I just rambled forever.
No, you're good. Mine's not as interesting. I didn't grow up in. I
don't know if mine was interesting.
A ton of fun places. I grew up in the middle of Ogden on pretty much ghetto street.
Did you really?
Yeah. So I grew up on Capitol Street between, I think it's 24th and 25th in Ogden. Yeah. So right below Harrison. I lived there till I was probably 4 or 5. I think 5. But my parents divorced when I was really little, and my dad had bought another house in Ogden, and my mom and I ended up leaving there and moving to Harrisville, and we joined the LDS church there. I don't remember how old I was, but I do remember going to Young Women's a lot, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I did a bunch of their activities. We went to girls' camp a couple times.
Was she LDS before?
I don't think she went to church before. So it's really weird and hard for me to believe that my parents were married for 19 years.
Right.
It's like a completely different life that I wasn't a part of.
Yeah.
So my siblings are 12 and 14 years older than me. So
kind of like me. Like we have that in common.
Yeah, we do. And I don't really recall if they were religious back then. My brother got into the church, and I don't know if it was from friends or what it was, but he's very LDS, him and his family. My sister really wasn't. She was more on the partying side of things, kind of like how I was in high school. Mm-hmm. But I was into church for quite a while. I like I said, I went to Young Women's, and it wasn't until junior high when I started playing sports competitively and we traveled that it was really hard to go to church on Sundays.
Yeah.
So I started weaning myself out of church then, but I still had a group of friends that we grew up from junior high to high school playing sports, and a lot of them were LDS and would go to church. So it was the push and the pull that you experienced too, where I have this group of friends that would go to church, and I played sports with them, and then I started dating my high school sweetheart back then, and he hung out with the partying crowd and would drink, that was my life too. It was the push and pull of like at nighttime I hung out with my ex-husband at the time, and then I played sports with these people that would go to church, and it was hard to figure out kind of where I belonged. So I was kind of stuck in the middle. But it wasn't until college, because I had a couple of experiences where I would go to church, and I was the same as you. I wore the tight-fitting clothes, and I was known for wearing the short skirts in high school with the tall hooker boots, as we called them back then. And I liked being able to show off what I had. And
my mom would always say, if you got it, flaunt it.
Yeah.
Like, she'd always say that.
And I mean, there's probably a lot more to that with like the sexuality things that I've experienced as an adult and learning. Yeah. But I did experience some stuff in church. I would go to church with my brother, and there were these, I remember this one day specifically, there were these two girls sitting a pew in front of us, and we were in sacrament. And they were turning to look at me, and then they would sit and whisper and laugh. And in the middle of sacrament, I probably shouldn't have, but me and my hot temper, I blurted out, "Do you guys have a problem?"
Yeah.
And they just kind of turned around and just started laughing again. And that day, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, if this is how the religion, and I don't want to associate the religion with that, because that's not how it always is.
Right. I think like at our age, we can recognize that that's not what the religion is about, and that's not what they preach, but there is a lot of that here. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Well, and my friend, so I had a girlfriend who moved from Indiana here and went to school at Weber and did the same degree as me. And she's LDS, and she said that the experiences that she grew up with in Indiana are completely different than the culture here in Utah.
It's different.
So I don't know if it's just how a lot of people, I don't know if it's because of the close-knit and how the culture is here in Utah, if that's kind of more how it is. But I don't want to associate it with the religion, because I know it's not like that outside of Utah.
Right.
But I kind of just vowed that I was not going to go to church anymore because of that. Because I'm like, I shouldn't. I shouldn't have to care about what I wear. I'm here, and I'm trying to be a part of the church, and it shouldn't be about my physical appearance. But then I went to college, and I was in the zoology department, and we learned about evolution and a whole bunch of stuff, and it just kind of clicked. I hung out with a bunch of people who were more atheist, and I loved, not that I loved
the science.
Yeah, I didn't like. Science. Yeah, I don't like to think that we die and nothing happens. But my mom is very, very spiritual.
She is.
So I believe that I'm spiritual, not as much as her, but I believe in energy. So everything is associated with energy, and I'm not saying that there's just like one God that takes care of everything, but I do believe that there's a lot of energy out there.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I mean, it helped me in my heart to understand kind of what I believed in, and so that's just kind of where I came from.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I can relate to that a lot, because the same thing when I started getting into science and then hanging out with people that were scientists or they were going into the same field or professors, I was like, it makes your brain really think,
it does. And what's going on here? You have those questions about church that they can't necessarily give you answers for. And that really does not work for me. Like I have to know the ins and outs of everything, and if someone can explain something to me, and not that science is the same way, but at least you can test it. Like, at least you can have a little bit of answers given to you on a lot of topics as far as like physics and then astronomy and astrology and a ton of other aspects.
Yeah.
But as far as religion, it was hard because they would always tell you to have faith, and I'm like, I can't sit there and have faith because that's not working for my brain.
Right.
And I have to have concrete answers. You are
very like analytical with things like that. I'm a little bit more on the I'm on the fence, because, and actually I was kind of more where you're at until I had Dusty. And then when I had my daughter, and maybe Bobby, remember Bobby from Bobby. Snap?
Yeah.
She kind of changed a little bit of my perspective, because she would just oddly call me at the weirdest moments when I needed to. And she's like, oh, God told me to call you. Like, not like God told her to, but she had a feeling from God. She's awesome. Shout out to Bobby. She's the owner at Snap, and she's just an awesome person.
If you ever felt bad or down, she was always there to pick you back up.
She's oddly in touch with that.
She is. She's very intuitive.
Yeah, and then after I had Dusty, I know that I have a faith that there's like a higher power, and I feel that for sure. But I don't know if religion. I don't know. I don't know. I just can't really get on board with religion,
Yeah.
So, but I do love the science of things too. Like, I love evolution. I mean, nobody can argue evolution. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And so I think looking into that is really exciting and fun, but there's always questions.
The fun thing about bringing up evolution is the whole aspect of like, we came from primates.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't want to say all Mormon individuals, but they'd look at you like you're freaking crazy.
I know. Well, and the thing is like there's science, so
Yeah.
you can like trace it and you can go back, so you can't argue it. But and I think that's what is hard is with religion is that you have to feel it, you have to have faith, and I think if you feel that and you know it's true and that's what you know in your heart, then that's what it is for you.
Yeah.
I just can't relate to that particular religion in that way. It's interesting though because my dad, he strayed away from the church. My dad's funny because I call him like he's like a cowboy gringo. I don't even know what to call him. Like he lives in Mexico. He's super liberal, but then he's got this conservative side, and he was LDS, but then he like smokes his cigars
so
and drinks his wine, and he's just a very fun man and very diverse man, and I love him dearly. But he would crack me up because he will argue all day long for the Mormon church. Like that's like his what do you call that? His foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he'll be having his wine and drinking his cigar, and he will go into it about the LDS church, and you can tell that his core values are there. But I think my dad is very like broad-minded, and he also loves science, and so he goes further out there and his own. He's very private about religion and stuff, but
it would be fun to talk to him about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's very fun. He's very interesting, and he's really, really like worldly and knows a lot about religion. So he's fun to talk to. But yeah, he's just provokes some different thoughts, and I like that. So he's not super just focused on one thing, but I can respect when people are.
Yeah. Well, my family is very diverse. So my brother and his family are very LDS. So he didn't get to go on a mission, which I think he really regrets. He got married at 19.
He still could.
I know he still could, but yeah, they're very religious in LDS. And my sister, she is Christian, so she goes to a non-denominational church, but she still goes to church. And then there's me that doesn't believe in God, but I do believe in something else. And then my father, I don't think he's religious, but he always tried to push me towards God. I didn't quite understand. I didn't understand why. And then his parents, when they died, they ended up getting sealed before they passed away. I don't know if it was because they were scared or
maybe
because they never went to church.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get that. And then my mom, she believes in God. She'll go to church every once in a while, but it's never been something that's been
my mom.
Consistent.
My mom loves God and Jesus, and she would I remember being little, and we'd read the Bible and just super cute stories, and I tried to do the same thing with Dusty because it gave me such comfort, and I love that. So my mom was super cute about that, but I don't remember her ever being super wanting to go to church.
Lindsay asked me a question. Now I can't remember what it was, but it was a person that's in the church. I don't know if it was an apostle or who it was, but she's like, "Who's that?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh crap."
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Dusty always refers to heaven as a person. Like she's like, "What would heaven think?" I'm like, "Babe, heaven's a place." So I'm like, "We need to talk more. Like we need to go into this more."
And I don't want to push my children away from it if that's something that makes them feel comfortable.
For sure, yeah.
Like I never want to tell them no, but I don't go to church. But if it was ever something that she wanted to do,
yeah,
I would be there for her.
That's how my parents
were.
I would
go for her.
Yeah. When I decided to get baptized, they were like on it. They're like, "All right, we'll do this, this, and this," and they were completely supportive. Yeah. Which, by the way, I've been baptized. I was 12. Yeah, I wasn't 8.
I was 8 when Yep. But yeah, the same thing though. Like if that was something, I don't want to take it away from her if it was something that she felt comfortable with.
Yeah, Dusty asked me to pray every night, and I actually pray all the time. I think it's something that my mom instilled in me. Like we'd get on a plane, we'd pray. We'd go, like if we're going on an adventure, we'd pray, like a road trip. So just inevitably, that's what I do. Yeah. Like and just weird, like yesterday with the earthquake, I'm like, okay, let's say a prayer. Like that's what I do, and I don't know what that means, but it's just like within me. And so
my mom prays to angels, and so sometimes I'll do that.
Yeah,
because I don't pray to a God.
Right.
So sometimes I'll pray to the angels, and I think it's mostly just the energy that you're putting out.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I explain it to myself, because I'm like, I really don't think I'm doing angels, like praying to actual angels, but I think it's the energy that I'm exuding that is like,
it's like
that positive, that positive energy that I'm like sending out into the world is giving me positive energy back. So I'm like, that's how I explain
it. For
that.
sure. Yeah. No, yeah. It's weird. I mean, there's something to say about that. And that's how I feel about like when I just inevitably pray. I'm like, well, there's something because it's just in me. Like that's just what I do. But anyway.
So a little bit about more of the Utah culture. So getting married young, having kids young.
Yes, that is definitely a culture thing for sure.
Yeah, so Farrah and I were both married really young. Even though we weren't in the church, we were both married uber young and then divorced very young. I felt like I got pushed in that direction, and I forced my ex-husband to marry me. Sorry if my ex-husband is listening to this, but I did. I was 22. We had dated for 5 years. All of my friends, which at the time, a lot of my Mormon friends at the time were getting married right out of high school.
Yeah.
And can I tell you how awkward it is? So I lost my virginity at 16.
Yeah, girl,
it happens.
It's very common.
It is.
That's actually late, I feel like, for these days. It's crazy.
Makes me sick. I don't want to think about it.
I know.
But so that was another one of the things that kind of pushed and pulled me away from a lot of my Mormon friends.
Oh, yeah.
And then we talked about it. Like, I think people knew then in high school, and it was really awkward outside of high school to go to a bridal shower for one of my Mormon friends and hear them talk about sex. I'm like, no, you said sex wasn't a good thing to talk about. It was just really awkward to hear them talk about their sex life after, even though they were only 19 and getting married.
Well, it's like what I was telling you earlier. I'm like, this makes me, like, talking on a podcast, like, publicly talking about sex. And I am not a person that has a hard time talking about sex, like, in general. I feel, like, awkward because it's the Utah culture. Like, people don't talk about it unless, they're married or even
it's like
then.
Drinking.
Yeah.
I would go to conferences outside. Yeah. I would go to conferences outside of Utah. Yeah. And this was in the last 2 years. And I would be sitting there and they would have an open bar at work. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, am I allowed to drink?
Very odd.
Like, yeah, it's the same. Yeah.
My brothers are from California. They've been raised in California. They're my half brothers. When my mom and her ex-husband divorced, my 2 oldest brothers stayed with him in California. My youngest brother, who I'm closest with, Steven, he came with us most of the time, but then he would go visit back and forth. And I remember they would always talk about how weird, once we moved to Utah, how weird the Utah culture was. Like, why is there not liquor in the grocery stores? Why is the liquor store closed at 7:00? Like, what is happening?
Why are things not open on Sunday?
Yeah, that was like their biggest thing. Like, what the hell? Like, my brother would be like, let's go out. I'm like, brother, it's Sunday. We can't go out. Like, that doesn't work like that. But yeah, that was like a huge thing, was that,
the cultural shock outside of shock. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were you saying before? There was something that you said that made me think that.
Sex.
I
don't remember.
No. Okay, well, you were talking about sex, and you were talking about just like how, I don't know, how awkward it is to talk about sex. And but I don't know why.
Yeah, you were talking about how awkward it is to talk about sex.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. Anyway,
okay.
It's awkward. Lost my train of thought, clearly. But yeah.
Yeah. So another thing, I had sex at 16. Obviously didn't wait until I got married. It's a big thing for the Mormon culture, is to wait. The one thing I don't quite understand. I don't understand this, and I don't know if it is still against the Mormon Church.
Give us some answers. What's like, what you don't understand? Give us answers.
Oh, me?
Yeah, no, not you.
Oh.
Our people listening, because you're saying I don't quite understand.
I don't understand this. Yeah, give me answers to this.
Yeah.
Why is it okay to do, like, foreplay nonsense and to do, like, all of those shenanigans?
Yes.
But not insert.
So
Casey's telling me it's not okay, but kids still do it. Like, I don't get it.
Our cute Casey is LDS, so he can, like, be back there answering, like, shaking or his head no, or, like, nodding yes. But yeah, we have heard some crazy stories. Like, even, like, Dustin was telling me stories because he grew up in Box Elder. Like,
a lot of our friends.
Certain people would do certain things, but they wouldn't go to this extent, or they wouldn't, like, I'm like, wait a minute, isn't it all the same?
Yeah.
Like, what? It's like Bill Clinton, I did not have sex with that lady.
Oral sex and the other things with hands is still sex.
Yeah.
But
not if you're Bill Clinton. Not if you're Bill Clinton. But yeah.
So that was one of the things that was really frustrating to me, is like, okay, if you're going to go to those extremes and you're only going to get married to have sex, why not just have sex?
Well, yeah, and so that's,
because obviously you have to repent for all the nonsense you're doing, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's, I feel like, a big culture thing too. But I actually was kind of raised that way, even though I wasn't raised LDS, so
I was just like, whatever.
Yeah. So my parents my whole life they've been together. They're still together. Mm-hmm. They're the happiest couple I've ever seen in my life. Like, they're still super cute. I don't want to get into it, but they're cute. They're super cute. Yeah. And they're very open about things, so we'll just leave it at that. But
do they do that, like, What's the sex? The book, the sex, the
Kama Sutra?
Yeah, do they do Kama Sutra?
I don't know. I don't know.
I could see it.
My mom always tells me too much. My dad tells me too much. But let's just put it this way. One time I was helping them move and found a really big box full of things. And I'm like, are these Halloween costumes? Like, what's going on? But yeah, no, they're super happy. They're way cute couple. But, I had only known them to be together. I didn't know anything else. And they preached that. Well, my dad didn't really ever preach anything to me. He was just my dad. But my mom always talked about like waiting. Mm-hmm. She didn't necessarily say wait until you're married, but wait, you need to hold off. Like, don't give that up. We talked about it the other day. My mom would just talk about how guys would lose interest in you and how people would view you a certain way, and don't do things like that. And so I was raised with that to an extent, but I do feel like she wasn't stupid about it. Like, that's like, just to put it bluntly, when I was 15, I had, since I was 14 to 17, I had a very serious boyfriend, the first love of my life, like puppy love, high school sweetheart.
14.
Terrible relationship. The worst thing I ever went through. But at the same time, I mean, that's what it was. So my mom one day, she's like, so you were complaining that you had acne on your chin. So let's go down and get you on birth control, and that's going to totally control it, because she was going to assume like, hey, hormones happen, this happens. So we're going to go get her on birth control, but I'm not going to give her consent. I'm not going to tell her like, hey, in case you have sex, she wasn't going to put it out there like that. But what she did was she was strategic, and she was like, this will actually help control your acne. So she took me down, got me on birth control. And in later years, she's like, well, yeah, you had a serious boyfriend. I wasn't going to be a grandma, but she didn't put it out there like that at the time. But she would always tell me like, and she didn't like my boyfriend in high school. So she'd always be like, he doesn't deserve you. Don't do that with him, and I remember we did do other things. Yeah. And we hadn't had sex. And like, I had this book and I wrote down what we did do. And my mom read it, and my mom chased his ass down the street.
Oh no.
Yeah. And he wasn't allowed to come over anymore. So my mom was very strict with that kind of thing. So that's I kind of grew up in a similar, I don't know, moral, maybe not exactly the same, but my mom was pretty morally like on top of my ass about
that. My mom never talked to me about that kind of stuff. Yeah. I do remember her coming into my room one day and she's like, I think we need to get you on birth control. And I was like, I already am.
Oh my gosh.
I took myself to Planned Parenthood, and I got on birth control when I was 17. Was I 17? Yes, I was 17. And I didn't, I'm just really not secret. I don't want to say secretive.
Private.
I'm just, private.
That's okay.
I'm just really private about that kind of stuff. And it's hard for me to talk to my mom about that kind of stuff.
Still?
Yeah. With some things,
Mima?
yeah.
With I'll tell Mima all the things.
It's so funny that I'm so open with like random strangers.
Yeah.
But when it comes to my mom, I'm very private.
Well, it's like, that personal relationship. Yeah.
But 17. But anyways.
That's cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess I can relate in that way. But so you just kept everything.
Yeah, I was very secret about it. Yeah, very secret about it.
Do you think it would have been different if you lived somewhere else, like where the culture was different, or do you think it was just your relationship with your mom?
I think the reason that I had about being private.
Yeah. Oh, like about sex and things like that.
I don't know. I had sex early because of I think how. A lot of my early experiences. So my mom and I were together. It was just us. Mm. So my mom was married from 90. So she divorced my dad when I was 3, and then she was married from like 96 to 2001. Uh-huh. And then it was us from then on out. Yeah. But like subconsciously, I have this idea in my head that one, I'm not worthy, and I'm not good enough for anybody. And I still have that mindset. Like I still stoop. Not that I don't want to say that I'm stooping low right now, but I still stoop pretty low. Like with the guys that I have dated, I stoop really low because I don't feel like I'm worthwhile. So I don't know if it's how I was raised or if like the religion has anything to do with it.
Do you think it like maybe has to do with like your relationship with your dad? Maybe. I'm going to be counselor
It might. Like
right
I think it might be subconsciously with my dad and maybe subconsciously with a lot of the stuff that my mom had gone through. Uh-huh. But I had sex early on because I used my sexuality to be liked.
Right.
And
it was like peer pressure.
Yeah, I felt like no one is going to like me unless I give myself
up. You have something to offer in that way, yeah.
Yeah, so it took me a long time. So even after my ex-husband, seriously, rampage after my divorce, and I felt like...
Which is kind of common, even in our culture and, like, the LDS culture. I know, like, so many of my friends that were very involved in the church and, you know, they got married in temple and whatnot, and they got married young. Like, when they got divorced, they went crazy. They went crazy with guys.
I think it's experiencing life, too. Yeah. I mean, when you're so young and you have a boyfriend in high school and that's all you've had is one man.
Yeah.
And then you get married outside of high school. Yeah. And then, I mean, what have you experienced? You haven't experienced life. And I feel like a lot of... I don't want to say a lot. I feel like some people in the Mormon religion that get married at 19 and haven't really been able to experience life, and they feel like they just need to have children. Mm-hmm. I feel like they will go on rampages after because it's like you haven't grown up. Right. Like in India, let's do that for example. They don't get married until after they finish school and established that they bought a house.
That's other cultures in the United States as well. Yeah. Like Utah's just rare in that.
It is that they don't have kids until their 30s. And I'm like, that sounds about right. Because now that I'm in my 30s, I feel like my 20s were experimental and doing things. And granted, I'm glad that I have my kids already, that I'm not starting fresh right now. Mm-hmm. But I was 26. Yeah. Like, we were both a little bit older with our first.
Yeah. I was 26 as well. Yeah. So when I moved to California, I was engaged to my ex-husband. And I was working at this law center, and I remember everybody there was like, "You're engaged? How old are you?" And I'm like, "I'm 21." They're like, "What?" They're all, so you are a baby. Yeah. You know, why are you getting married? And there's, you know, it's just different. If you go to other states, I mean, you'll always find, like my brother, you know, he's got a 19-year-old now, and love my nephew, and my brother's the best dad in the world. But Braden, you were an accident because he was 20. He was 22 when him and Braden's mom, you know, had the accident. And but to him, he was like, I didn't for one second think, you know, about marriage, because that's just not how our culture, like in another, you know, where he grew up in California works. Like, he's like, it was an oops, and we're great parents, but we weren't going to get married because of an oops, you know. Yeah. The greatest oops that's ever happened. But,
I know, right?
But yeah, I mean, you know, it's just a different culture. You know,
what kind of life would that have been? Right. Just to get married because you had a child.
Right. And that happens. It does. You know, and it's pushed a lot here. But you do have the, you know, exceptions like our cute Casey and Aaron that have made it work, you know, since they were kids. And
my
Arlo
brother and sister have done it for 20 some odd years.
And Arlo and his wife. And like, there's a lot of different examples I can think of that have been great. But, you know, for the most part, I feel like you're still growing up. You know?
Well, what's the divorce rate in Utah?
Insane.
Super high?
We should have looked that up. I don't know. But
it's super high.
It's insane.
And then how many of those people are now on a rampage that are just trying to date around?
Time and time again.
Like, how many guys have we been in contact with that have, that's what happened. It's like they were in the religion. They went on a mission, or they got married young, got divorced, and now they drink, or they do other.
Well, my ex-husband, like, he was actually quite a bit older than me. But he actually went on his mission. He grew up in the church. His family was all in the church. And once he went through whatever he went through with the girl he was with when he went on his mission, he just was like, I don't know. He just came back and was just done with it, and kind of went a little crazy and was kind of a partier and stuff. And then I don't know where he's at now with that, but with me, he's like, I never want to go back to the church again, you know? And so I think there's just different experiences, and you kind of have to just make up your mind. And I feel like a big mistake with any religion or any, you know, parenting is to push your children in a certain direction.
Agreed.
You know, and to just not have communication with your kids, because I feel like that's the worst thing you can do.
It is.
You know? And that's kind of where his family, my ex-husband, like, he was forced. And then now, well, I don't know about now, but then he wanted nothing to do with it. So I don't know. I feel like that's very common here. And let's see. Okay, so one thing that I had was if we could tell our teenage selves something. Because I don't want to give any teenagers advice. I'm just saying that right now, unless it's in the gym. I'm not going to give you guys advice. But if we could give ourselves, like, advice living in Utah growing up, what would you tell yourself?
I would have told myself, don't get in a serious relationship.
Bam. That's exactly what I was.
Yeah, exactly. That was my biggest thing. Because so I got in my first serious relationship I was a tomboy. I was like this ugly little nerdy kid with glasses and
believe
braces
you.
and this like, oh my God, my mom will show you pictures. My sister called me Harry Potter's girlfriend because I had these freaking huge glasses and this bobbed hair, and my mom ended up perming it at some point. And then
gosh.
I had braces. So it wasn't until 9th grade where I was like, I'm a woman.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started my period really young. I
Mhm.
was end of 5th grade. So I was a
Okay,
woman
yeah.
really, really young,
Yeah.
but really awkward. Didn't really know my body then.
You didn't know what to do with it.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I had these big old boobs back then, which ended up being really small in high school, but in
Isn't that
6th
weird
grade,
how that
they're
works?
big, yeah.
Same. I went through that too.
But so 9th grade, I finally was somewhat pretty.
Yeah.
And then I had my first boyfriend in 10th grade. Very first makeout session, like kissing everything in 10th grade. It took till 10th grade.
Yeah.
And then it just went downhill really, really fast from there. But
Yeah.
I had a boyfriend 10th grade, and then I met Mitch, my ex-husband, I was 16, turning 17. So, I mean, after that, I had a serious boyfriend until I was 25.
Yeah.
We were together till I was 25. I had Hensley when I was 26. So
yeah, and if you think about those years, you are trying to figure yourself out.
Well, that's
and
when I
doesn't always
decided.
work out for everybody, you know.
No. Well, yeah, you grow. I changed so much till I was 25. That's when I had changed with religion. Like when I told Mitch that I didn't believe in God anymore, he was quite upset with me.
Yeah.
Because he was wanting to get back into the church then
Mm.
too. And I mean, I changed. I loved tattoos. I became a completely different person
Right.
those first 5 years in my 20s.
Yeah,
So
I know things change.
Your
quite
brain
a bit.
changes.
Yeah, you're developing still, and I know that's one thing I would have told myself too. Is I don't feel like I experienced high school the way I should have.
Yeah. Well, and I got cut my senior year from softball because I partied a lot and I drank a lot and I wasn't practicing as much as I should.
Mm-hmm.
So between that and the coach that I had that year was a jackass anyways. He cut half of his seniors, which was a stupid idea.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to play sports my senior year because of the decisions that I made.
And you love sports.
Yeah,
so.
I love my softball career ended on a really bad note and it makes me sad.
Yeah. But I know it's things like that. Like I wish I would have just listened to my mom. Like, Mom, if you're listening, which you will be, I know, it's huge. But
I know you don't think that your parents are
my
right.
mom freaking knew everything.
Right?
Like my mom, I always go to my dad. It was funny in high school. Like I'd call my dad if I was drunk at a party and I'd be like, Dad, don't tell Mom, come get me. Cause I could do no wrong with my dad. Like I was an angel to him no matter what. Like I'm his baby. Like even tonight, I'm like harassing him to buy me a new ring because he gave me a ring a while ago. And he's like, okay.
Aww.
Like he's just the nicest, sweetest man, always loved me. But my mom didn't always love me. She was always on my butt. And
she always loved you.
Yeah, she always loved me. I don't know. But yeah, we'd fight a lot and all the time. But I wish I would have listened to her because everything she said was 100% accurate. She was right about the guy I was dating. She was right about school. She was right about everything. So I wish I could go back. If you wouldn't
have made those decisions, though, those mistakes, it wouldn't make you who you are. And that's one thing that scares me about my oldest is it's going to be one of those rides with that one, and she's going to have to experience her own mistakes, which I'm hoping she does. Yeah. Because I am a firm believer that you have experience your own mistakes to be the person. Yeah. But it's going to be one hell of a ride.
That's how my mom and I were. Like, I love my mom so much. Like, we're so close. But we have literally gotten, like, fist fights. Actually, that's not true. I would have never, ever hit my mom because she would have murdered me. Like, this woman's 105 pounds. Like,
she would have laid your ass out.
And, yeah, nobody would believe me. Like, when I'd be mad at my mom and I'd be, like, complaining at school, everyone's like, what? Your mom's awesome. We just watched football with her yesterday. Like, we left school and went and saw her. And I'm like, that is not my mother. Like, that is not how she was with me. Because she was so strict with me, but she was so cool with everybody else. And, like, everybody loved my mom.
She just wanted the best for you.
Yeah. She's just an angel. Like, she's a sweetheart. But she has this devil side that's, like, she has this hot temper, okay? So we would go to war. And I'd be like, you're crazy. And that was, like, her trigger. Freaking backhand and so she gets a little feisty. So
did my mom ever tell you the story about the time she came to Mitch's house at in the middle of the night looking for me? So I was at Mitch's house and his parents were gone. Yeah. And I think this was when I was a senior or something. And she didn't know where his house was, but she had the address and it was so hard for her to find. And it's in the middle of the night and we had fallen asleep and I forgot to go home.
I have the same story.
Yeah. We just fell asleep.
Yeah.
We didn't just fall asleep, but we fell asleep. And
Mom, we just fell asleep.
Yeah, and we're asleep and we hear this bang, 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 bang on the
no.
door. So Mitch gets up and goes and looks at the door and he comes back and he is white. Like he just saw a ghost and he's like, your mom's outside. And I'm getting dressed and I'm like, no, it's not her. And he's like, no, I'm serious. Your mom's at the front door. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, no, she's not. And I didn't believe him. So I walked to the front door and my mom's like, get your ass in the car. And the thing that I loved about my mom is she would not confront me about stuff. So I knew when I was in trouble.
Yeah.
I knew. So I got home. We didn't talk about it.
Really?
I loved it. We didn't talk about it. I just knew. And so we never would get in those confrontations because if she would confront me, we would fight and it wouldn't lead anywhere. So she would just let it be.
So she at least would think about my mom. That. Yeah. I know she kind of is like more of like, she's like logic. When you guys are fighting, like she'll just like back off.
Yeah. And it really helps that she backs off, I back off. And it's like if my freaking boyfriends and spouses would do, well, Colby does that. He does a really good job. But I'm like, if people would just, married. Yeah, I'm like, if people would just know just to back off, then things are going to be fine.
Yeah, see, and that's like my mom and I would just go to war. Like I don't back off at all, ever. That's not my personality. And hers is even worse. So yeah, we would go to war. My dad would have to get in between us all the time, which is so funny because like we're so close and everyone thinks we're the nicest people, but we just like butt heads. So it's so hard. But I have that same story. My mom, I actually did fall asleep. Nothing was happening. I fell asleep on a banana chair. I was playing the like.
Was it a banana chair?
It was a chair. It was a chair. Yes, it was a chair. I had like my dress on still, and I was playing Nintendo 64. And like we all went back to his house, and I think him and I were fighting because we were always fighting. And I was on this banana chair, and I passed out, and I woke up to my mother grabbing me by the hair and dragging me up the stairs. Yeah, and like everybody's like, "What's going on?" All these people were sleeping, and like my mom just dragged me up. Yeah, she did not tolerate that, and I think it was probably like 2 or 3 in the morning or something. But I had just fallen asleep. It was after a dance. Like nothing had happened legitimately. So yeah,
we're gonna be those parents. Gosh. Oh, can you just wait, or can you just imagine what's gonna happen?
It's so hard. Like I hope Dusty continues to be a sweet soul because then we'll be fine.
I know.
Because I'm not a sweet soul, but she is. So it works out.
So, so you didn't go into your what you did with sex, because you didn't have sex in high school, did you?
So we did all the things.
Other than that.
Yeah. But everybody assumed because I had my boyfriend and I dressed the way that I did that that's what was going on. And we were doing things, but he was actually having sex with everybody else but me. I don't have to name any names, but yes, anybody that knew me in high school, yeah. The boyfriend was not faithful. It's fine. It's high school. But yeah, and he's actually married to like the main one. Or I don't know if they're married, but anyway, it's fine. We're all good now. But yeah, so I didn't like, it was kind of a big deal. It actually still is a pretty big deal to me. So like versus.
So were you looked down upon in high school then because people assumed that you were having sex?
I don't want to say so much in high school. I think it was like 9th grade.
Oh.
Because that's when I met him at the bus stop. Like he was driving his cool car because he always had like this cool car. He'd go on the Vard and race, and
of course,
yeah. And then he'd like cat call at me at the bus stop when I get off school, and so then we like started talking. And he was actually like a straight and narrow kind of guy at the time. Like he was a jock and just a good kid. Got really good grades, and things went crazy his junior and senior year. But when he was a sophomore, he was a good kid. But anyway, so. Yeah, I think people just started assuming that we were, and that's actually not the case. We were doing other things, but that was it. And then a lot of my friends, though, that were actually like really, really LDS, they got pregnant like in high school. And this is my thing. Like, I think this is like a Utah thing, right? I don't want to say it's the church thing, but it's a Utah thing that I think they preach abstinence. But to me, in my opinion, I think if my parents would have preached abstinence, I probably would have gone a different way. Mm-hmm. My mom and my dad were very open with me about sex. I could literally go and be like, I mean, let's say 30-year-old Farrah. I could go to my mom and be like, hey, Mom, like, where's some good lingerie I can get? Like, we can have that conversation and be super open with each other. I can talk about those things. It's a little weird with my dad. My dad still views me as like his little girl, so we don't really go there. But my mom and I talk about it, and we always have. And so my mom was very open about it. And so I could talk to her, and, it was okay. She would chase the boyfriend down the street, it's fine. But yeah, we could talk about things, and I didn't feel like I could ever have to hide anything from her, and it was huge. So I feel like education is everything. I probably maybe would have gone a different way if my mom hadn't talked to me about those kinds of things. So
I see a lot of those guys. There was one in particular that was in my life, but I see them so thirsty because they're told that they can't have it.
Oh, yeah.
And this one would do everything that he could to not. And every time we were together, like he would always go to that point, but it was because he was told he couldn't do it. And I mean, I don't want to call this person out, but I don't think this guy had sex till he was like in his latter 20s because he didn't end up getting married until late in his life.
Gotcha.
But he was one thirsty sumbitch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you would have just had sex and got it over with, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have been.
You'd be okay.
Yeah, you would have been fine.
Yeah, I know. And I think that's the thing too is like, I don't know.
But why so this is where I struggle because in my mind, I struggle with this because I think it's a lot of personal things, but sex to me is really hard. Like I can separate the emotional, we've talked about this, the emotional contact of sex and then just what it is for sport.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in the Mormon culture, I understand that you have sex to reproduce. Like I get that. You're close to your spouse, you have sex to have family. But why is it so strict? These people need to tell me why it's so strict.
Answer our questions, yeah.
Because why can't you have sex, but protected sex, so that you're not having these like illegitimate children outside of whatever
disease?
But I just want to know why you are only allowed to have sex with one person. Like I just feel like a lot of these people would have been a lot better in picking a partner outside of high school and after their missions and having a better relationship. And I'm not one to give relationship advice. Obviously, I'm divorced, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like they would have had a better relationship with a person if they would have had sex early on in their lives and not got married at 21.
You got to test drive the car before you buy it.
I agree.
Right?
Like, there are so many things that go in with sex. Like, I mean, if you're not physically connected to the person, like people's body parts are different. Like if you don't mesh and if you don't fit, like things don't work.
I'm telling you, like it's the evolution, like right there. If you don't like I've been with people where I don't like their smell and I'm like, nope, I will not
or the
marry
way
you.
they do things. Like it's just, I don't want to have to
train.
I don't want to have to train
you don't.
somebody.
Yeah, right. At our age, like where we're at now, I was gonna say at our age, like we're old, but like really,
we are old
for Utah culture. We're old, but no, but really, I feel like you can like get better, but it's sometimes it's just like chemistry is just not there.
Exactly.
And then it becomes more of like a friendship, and which is great. Like friendship is so great. So my ex-husband, hopefully he's not listening to this. I'm not gonna throw him under the bus. He's a great guy. But we had the best friendship. Like we were stupid funny together. Like we had the most
awkward.
Like stupid. Like we pretended to be like bears and like we're just dumb. But we had the funnest relationship ever, but there wasn't that like connection. So he didn't keep my interest. It wasn't him. Our relationship didn't keep my interest. And plus I was really young. And so it just didn't work out. But I have to have that like magnetic chemistry that keeps my attention. I do have that with Dustin.
You do have that with Dustin.
Yeah, it's unreal. But
yeah, I don't want to say what I'm saying as a negative thing, because if you feel like you can wait for that one person and it's a special moment for you, that's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, it's hard just because I think of what I've gone through subconsciously. Sex is really hard for me to have that. And my ex-husband, like it's complicated. I'm not as lovey-dovey as I used to be when I was younger. There's a lot of things going on subconsciously in my head. Yeah. I mean, we could have a whole rap session about what's going on in there about sex.
Right.
But I mean, if that's something that's important to you and it's great and you have that connection with a person, that's fantastic. It's just me, and I'm not bashing the Mormon religion or anything. It's just something that's confusing to me because, one, I don't have it. And two, I'm just not quite sure. Maybe it would help with longevity of relationships in some relationships if you were able to experience that with somebody else and be able to pick that person,
right?
You know, the chemistry part of it. Totally. So not pick and choose, because that sounds really bad.
Right?
But
No,
you know what I mean.
No, for sure. And so, like something that I do, I've told you about a few times, is I do like the 90-day thing.
I can't do that. I'm so bad. I'm sorry.
My friends are like, "You goddamn prude!" Like everybody calls me a prude.
One.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Colby's like, did we have sex on the first day? And I'm like, yeah, I did that with lots of people. I'm sorry.
So, and that's fine. Like, it's funny because like back in the day, I used to like try to, not in a judgy way, but I would try to talk to my friends, like make them wait.
Yeah.
But actually I think Dustin taught me that, well, I am very appreciative of Dustin's background, and he went through his promiscuity, like his stages.
He's the male version of me.
No, shut up. Whatever. But he had his time, and I'm grateful for it because it's like what we have is I like what he does. So I appreciate it. And my whole mentality has changed because I used to have a hard time with I guess people that had a lot of partners. I had a hard time with Dustin when we first got together because I didn't have a lot of partners. He did have a lot of partners. And so that was hard for me. But at the end of the day, it happened for a reason, and I look at it differently. And I'm like, if that's what you like to do, is that hurting anybody? Go do what you like to do. Like, be safe about it. Obviously, don't go get knocked up by a bunch of people. Don't get diseases. I just don't judge people for that anymore, just like I don't judge people if they want to wait to have sex. But my personal, I'm like kind of in between. Like I had that 90-day rule. If it's not jiving within that 90 days, sorry, you're not getting any.
My reasoning was a lot different.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go into the background. I'm not going to say that I was a slut because I
don't like that word.
No. There was subconscious reasons as to what I did when I did it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't like, and that's something about me too, is I've grown up in a very feminist family. My dad and my mom are very supportive of females and what they do, and my dad would never, like, that word was not even in his vocabulary. Like, that's just not who he is. So I'm the same way. I'm like, you don't shame somebody for wanting to do something different.
Mom and Dad, if you're listening, you're secretly my parents too.
Yes, they're amazing. Like, they're very amazing people, but that's just not something that's ever been, like, my mom, it kind of drilled certain things in my brain, but at the same time, they're not judgmental at all, like at all. And so it's kind of like, if that's your cup of tea, that's your cup of tea. So I don't think that makes or breaks a person. So yeah, I'm not judging you. I think it's fine if that's what you like to do.
Well, and I got to a point where I felt bad about myself.
Right.
And
that's when you change
full
it.
Circle. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I've always said to anybody. Like, once it starts affecting you in a negative way, you don't like it, or you want to change something, change it. And that's where Dustin was. Like, he's like, I don't want to be that person. I like being with just one person, and so it's good. But yeah. So, but a lot of people are like, Farrah, you need to go, like, you need to have that like crazy time, and I'm like, Dustin's my crazy time. It's fine.
Yes, I hear all the stories.
It's all good.
One day I'm going to watch.
They're good stories. I don't feel like he'd be opposed, but okay. So real quick, because we're running out of time, guys. This was a crazy intense episode. We do have feedback because, we like to get you guys involved.
We have tons of feedback.
So
thanks for giving it to us, guys.
Yeah. So we do have the positives that we got back. People say that they love the beautiful scenery and skies, mountains. This is something that I wanted to like personally talk about, the family being number one. I think that's amazing. Like I
do as well.
Yeah, I actually took Dusty to church a few times with Bobby when she was younger because I love that aspect. Like I love promoting family time and just the morals that are instilled and discipline and all those things are great. People talked about growing up with low crime rates and safe schools, good-looking people. That's actually my brothers. Like my brothers lived in California, and they're like, we love going to Utah because everybody's super hot. So we have good-looking. I know, everybody's taken. Yeah. And there's a lot of things to do. So those are some positive things we got. Do you want to read the negative things?
Yeah, I know one of the negatives was everything's closed on Sundays. That's so hard sometimes. Like I understand the concept of closing on Sundays, but sometimes it's freaking aggravating.
It's getting better though, I feel like.
The inside cliques, we get that, I think, city to city. There's different like cliques. Like I'm not going to name the cities. I was going to, but I'm not going to name them. But there's
clicky.
Yeah, it gets really clicky.
Yeah.
Liquor laws, it's hard, but I mean they have increased the beer.
I think they're normal now. The beers are maybe. Yeah. I think so.
Something like that. Not a big culture for adult friends.
Yeah, I had somebody say this. Like they kind of put emphasis on it that they felt like when they were younger they had like a lot of friends, but now that they're older, like they have a hard time finding.
Is this for like more like Mormons or non-Mormons? Because I know that they have like the singles board. I've never been to one.
Yeah, I don't think she's Mormon, but
I guess that is hard because a lot of people are married with kids.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're 25 and wanting to find friends, they're already married with children and having their own shenanigans.
And she did mention when she lived out of state, she had a ton of like adult friends, and then when she moved to Utah, she's like, nobody wants to be my friend. So
one of the big ones too that is religion takes over the state. So it does. It kind of influences a lot of our laws and stuff here in Utah. One of them being like the CBD stuff, which I think would be really beneficial for a lot of people with like medical marijuana and stuff like that, which could be definitely another topic we talk about. But I feel like it would be very beneficial for a lot of people just to get them off of opioids, which is another huge thing here in Utah, and suicides. So homophobes and closed-minded people. So I had dealt with this a lot in my priors with homophobes, and
it strikes a nerve for me.
It does. It strikes a nerve for me too, especially when I possibly have one close to me and my family as well.
Me too.
But I had a lot of people telling me that it was the devil in me thinking that it's okay to accept these people. And I'm not everybody in Utah probably doesn't feel this way. I'm just saying personal experiences. It really makes me sad.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my biggest things, my biggest problems is, and it's not just the LDS culture. There's so many homophobic people out there that
in different states. There's specific states in general that are very homophobic.
I don't like that.
Never met so many fake people. Utah definitely is very good with that, but we're not the only ones.
Harsh negatives we got here on Utah.
This one says forced smiles during eye contact.
That made me
awkward.
Laugh. That made me laugh. I'm all, well, do you just not
what
smile
about during sex? Like
just awkward smiles and eye contact. Yeah.
Judgment towards those that don't conform in the LDS religion. There's I'm not going to say that it's the Mormon religion in general, but there are people within the religion that are that way.
For sure.
A plethora of hypocrisy. Yeah. That's in general with people. I'm sorry, but not even just the religion, but people are very hypocritical. Yeah, that's our negatives that we got through social media.
So I think, I mean, we've all experienced some of that here and there, but overall, like, I love Utah. When I moved to California, I thought I was going to fall in love with California and it was going to be my place forever, just because I feel like I'm more of a California type of person.
Beach bum?
Maybe, beach bum, and maybe kind of like liberal. Don't kill me, but I'm very liberal minded just by nature.
They don't. Their gun laws suck.
I know their gun laws do suck, and that is where I'm conservative. But when I moved to Cali, I really thought that was going to be my place, but I could not wait to move back to Utah. Like, every time we would come here, I'm like, oh, the mountains and the snow and all the
Honestly, that's how I feel when I go on work trips, and I'm like, oh, like the first initial is like, oh, it's so nice to be outside of Utah, but after a couple of days, I'm like, I love living in Utah. I love it because it's safe for my kids, and it really is a beautiful place to live. But as far as other things, like, it's nice to go outside and be able to see what the different cultures are.
Well, it's fun to go visit places, and I think that's where I mistook like Cali for somewhere I wanted to live. My brothers, that's where they will live and die, and that's where they've always wanted to be. They love it. But when I lived there, my brother's like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you want to live here?
California fits your brothers, though.
I know.
They do.
That's where they've grown up, and that's who they are. And my brother couldn't wrap, like, when I told him I was moving back to Utah, he's like, why? Like, he was so sad, and I bawled my eyes out. But it's just who I am, you know? Like, I love Utah, and
I would bawl my eyes out if you moved back to California.
I know, yeah.
You're not leaving.
I love California, but I like to visit there, and Utah's just my place. So at the end of the day, we love Utah, and there are some cultural things, but I feel like no matter where you live, you're going to have some cultural things.
But Utah does have a lot to offer. That's why a lot of people are moving here.
It's insane.
It sucks.
It's like very populated now.
Utah.
Don't move.
We
don't
suck
move
here.
Yeah. No, but so anyway, I think that sums it up. We do need to do our
positive affirmations.
Okay, so you go first because I don't know.
My positive affirmation is I am proud of the strong woman that I have become.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I love you too.
Oh, thanks.
My affirmation is that I'm very open-minded.
Yes,
like,
that's a big one.
Yeah, I feel like, it can be bad though, because, so it's like, we were talking about, I used to be a part of PETA, and you guys will hear about that on the next episode. And so I'm very easily persuaded, because if somebody has a good argument, I'm like, oh, I get you.
I'm the same way, though. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then someone else will say something like, you're stupid for thinking that. I'm like, oh, but it sounded good.
I know. And then I'm like, but what you say sounds good. So who's telling the truth? Yeah. So there's pros and cons to being open-minded, but for the most part, I like that I'm open-minded, and I'm grateful that I was raised that way. So.
Yeah. Well, that's a good affirmation.
Yeah, thanks. So I think that's all we have.
Make sure you guys subscribe on iTunes and Spotify and Podbean and all of those things.
Don't be too hard on us. We're not Utah haters.
Yeah, we're not trying to hate on haters. But please provide your feedback. Make sure you're following us at the Finessology Podcast and at Mrs._Ali_Reed.
And at Fit Fair Nation and Real Fair Nation.
Yeah.
Dakota Wildlife.
Oh, and Dakota Wildlife Studios. If you're interested in taxidermy,
photography, because he's our camera guy. He's always here, just so you guys know.
Make sure you guys listen to the last podcast too. It was really interesting on Casey's about the wolves.
Oh yeah, that was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, was it 2 weeks ago?
Well, when this airs. Yeah, we're behind the times.
Oh yeah, we are behind the times. Just make sure you're listening to the story behind the photograph.
Yeah, just go subscribe. It's fine. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.